Welcome to the Deep Dive. You send us sources, we dig in and find out what's really interesting.
And useful.
And useful, exactly. So today we're looking at a YouTube video. It's from Thewizardliz, and the title is pretty blunt. Stop dating broke guys.
Doesn't pull any punches, that title.
Not at all. It's, a very direct, very opinionated take on what women should expect from men in dating today.
Mm-hmm. And the core idea really seems to be about women needing to raise their standards.
Yeah, especially around money, financial stability, but also, and this seems really key, respect.
Definitely respect. It's a view that, well, it certainly gets you thinking, doesn't it?
It does. And it makes you wonder, like, what expectations do you find are most talked about or maybe the most debated when it comes to dating right now?
Well, jumping right into the video, what hits you first is just her sheer frustration. She seems really annoyed with this dynamic she sees where women are kind of lowering their expectations.
And in doing so, she argues they're sort of spoiling men.
That's exactly her term. She feels women are accepting less than they deserve, and it's having this negative effect.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit. This initial grievance, she paints this picture where men now expect women to do all the things they've maybe traditionally done.
Right, like the emotional heavy lifting, keeping the house running, all that invisible work.
But then on top of that, men also expect things like, flowers, or even financial help from the woman.
Yeah, that's the dynamic she's describing. It creates this sense that women are meant to be, well, everything.
Mother, chef, cleaner, nanny, therapist. She lists them off.
Exactly. And meanwhile, if a man does something basically decent, it's treated like some huge achievement.
Why do you think that feeling, that sense of imbalance, hits home for so many people?
Well, it probably taps into, those really ingrained ideas about gender roles we all grew up with. Women are often expected to be the nurturers, right? And she's arguing those expectations haven't gone away, but now there are new demands on women without men's expected contributions really changing much in return.
Right. And that leads directly into her main point. Women need to stop accepting the bare minimum. It's a real call to action.
It is. But she doesn't just say, raise your standards. She immediately points out what she sees as a massive double standard.
How so?
Well, she argues men often have really specific expectations for women looks, cooking skills, even sexual history.
Okay.
But if a woman voices her preferences, especially certain ones, she gets labeled.
Right. And she gives examples, doesn't she?
Mm-hmm.
Like wanting a tall partner is seen as, superficial.
Yeah, or wanting someone financially stable makes you a gold digger.
Those labels, they say a lot, don't they? About what society thinks is okay for men versus women to want.
It really suggests this power imbalance where male desires are just normal, but female desires, especially around security or certain physical traits, are judged.
Why do you think those specific things, height and money, provoke such strong reactions?
Good question. Maybe it connects to, traditional ideas of masculinity, height as protector, maybe.
Could be. And the gold digger thing taps into old anxieties about why women choose partners, right? Assuming it's just about money.
Yeah, potentially dismissing genuine connection. And then she addresses that question some men apparently ask, so what do you bring to the table?
Right. And her answer is quite something.
It is. She basically says, me, my presence, my personality, who I am, my beauty. She argues her inherent value is enough, especially if the table is already full.
Implying the partner is already providing, so she doesn't need to justify her existence there with a list of contributions.
Precisely. Her point is, if a man is truly willing and able to provide, he won't even ask that question. It sort of reframes the whole dynamic.
Okay, so standards are raised. Now, she gets specific about who not to date. This broke guy idea.
Mm-hmm.
But it's important how she defines that, isn't it? It's not purely about cash flow.
Not at all. That's crucial. For her, broke is more about a mindset, a lack of ambition, a lack of drive.
So the money, or lack of it, is just a symptom.
Kind of. She believes a guy with real ambition, someone who's proactive, will figure out the money side of things eventually.
So the red flags are more about guys who seem happy to coast, blame everyone else, don't really take initiative. It's about that inner motivation.
Exactly that internal engine. And she does draw a distinction based on age, which is interesting.
How so?
She suggests that, maybe when you're teenagers, finances aren't the biggest deal. But for women over 21, women who understand rent, bills, financial stress.
Then it becomes a much more valid consideration. That makes sense. Our priorities shift as we get older.
Absolutely. Reality bites and financial stability becomes part of that practical picture. And then she's very open about her own preferences.
Yeah, she says she's attracted to money, power, and this specific masculine energy.
Which she defines as a man's willingness to provide and protect. It's a very direct statement of her values.
Very direct. And she even says if a man isn't willing to provide in that way, she'd rather date a woman.
Right. Citing her own attraction and her willingness to be the provider in that scenario, it really underlines how important that providing aspect is to her definition of a desirable male partner.
So this then connects to her next point about insecurity and disrespect. She links to these broke guys.
Yeah, her theory is that men who feel financially insecure, especially if their partner earns more or supports them, can become resentful.
And disrespectful as a result. Why might that happen?
Well, it could be feelings of inadequacy, maybe. A sort of lashing out because traditional gender roles feel challenged.
Maybe. And she makes a pretty stark prediction, too, that these guys might even leave the woman who supported them.
Right, leave her for someone else once they're built up, because fundamentally they didn't respect the woman who helped them in the first place.
That's quite a cynical view, suggesting the respect wasn't really there to begin with.
It is, and she also connects a man's lack of self-respect, maybe from feeling unsuccessful, directly to how he treats his partner.
So if he doesn't respect himself, he won't respect her either.
That's the connection she draws. That internal feeling impacts the external behavior towards the partner.
And she adds another layer, suggesting these men are easily swayed by what other men think.
Yeah, contrasting it with how women, in her view, tend to defend their partners more fiercely against criticism. It points to maybe different pressures around external validation.
Okay. Then she shifts slightly, talking about the danger of accepting small gestures like flowers after really bad behavior.
Like cheating is the example she uses.
Right. So valuing the token gesture over the fundamental disrespect.
Her point is clear. Don't let small, nice things make you forget big, hurtful actions. Prioritize your self-respect. Leave disrespectful situations.
Don't be bought off cheap, essentially.
Pretty much, which leads her to challenge the whole idea that a woman can change a man.
And her take on that is?
Pretty definitive, she says. Forget it. You can't change someone's fundamental character, especially behaviors they've had for years.
Choose them for who they are now, not their potential.
Exactly. Don't sign up for a renovation project. And definitely don't tolerate disrespect from the get-go, like name-calling. Set boundaries immediately.
And she links that verbal stuff to something more serious, too.
She does. She makes a direct link between verbal disrespect and the potential for physical violence. It's a serious warning not to downplay aggressive language.
Absolutely. Okay, so shifting gears again, she talks about the early dating phase. Her advice here might surprise some people.
You mean about keeping options open?
Yeah. She advised women not to focus on just one person too early. What's the logic there?
Her argument is that women tend to get emotionally invested quickly, maybe exclusively, while men often date multiple people initially.
Okay.
So she suggests that if a man knows a woman is also seeing others, it might actually motivate him more, make him try harder to win her over.
So it's playing into a kind of competitive instinct and avoiding looking desperate, maybe.
Kind of. The idea that being exclusive too soon signals you don't have other options, which might make you seem less desirable. It touches on that whole men want what other men want idea.
Interesting psychology there. And she adds a warning, too, right? About ignoring obvious red flags early on.
Absolutely. Don't date the known cheater or someone whose substance issues clearly affect their ability to be present. It's about using your head, not just your heart.
Which connects back to considering long-term stuff, like that provider ability she values. Balance emotion with practicality.
Right. It's about a realistic assessment. Which brings us to her point about vulnerability, specifically telling a partner, "You're all I have."
She sees that as dangerous. Not romantic.
Definitely dangerous. Her concern is isolation. If that person is your entire world, it gives them immense power, especially if the relationship turns controlling or abusive.
You have no one else to turn to.
Exactly. She actually advises women to either build real friendships or, if need, pretend they have connections, just to avoid appearing totally isolated.
Right. That's quite strategic.
Yeah.
The core message being, have a support system. Don't let one person be your everything.
Yes, because isolation enables control and manipulation. Plus, she argues that level of neediness or desperation isn't attractive anyway.
Okay. And then, wrapping up, She tries to shift the perspective on blame when things go wrong.
Yeah, she strongly encourages women to stop blaming themselves if a relationship fails or if there's infidelity.
It's not your fault, it's the partner's actions.
That's her message. Own your power, recognize your worth. She even says that simply by dating a man, a woman can elevate his status in the eyes of others.
So the final takeaway is really about self-worth.
Recognize your value, raise your standards accordingly, especially around respect and stability, and don't settle for less. That seems to be the essence.
So recapping the Wizardliz's core points. It's a strong call for women to raise expectations significantly, particularly around finance and respect.
And to be really discerning. Avoid men who lack ambition, show disrespect, or have major unresolved issues.
Ultimately, it's about women valuing themselves and making choices from that place of self-worth. Now, as you're listening, we encourage you to think about how these ideas land with you. They're pretty direct, potentially controversial.
Yeah, do they resonate with your own experiences? Or maybe challenge them? It definitely sparks discussion.
It brings up that bigger question, doesn't it? How much do our cultural backgrounds, societal norms, influence what we expect in relationships?
Absolutely. And are those expectations changing? What are the potential upsides, maybe even downsides, of adopting the kind of mindset presented in this video?
Good questions. Think of this deep dive as, well, food for thought. A starting point for reflecting on the really complex world of modern dating.
Definitely lots to think about there.
Thanks for diving in with us.